back. Welcome back to VMworld Live. I'm John Troyer. We're here in Copenhagen at VMworld 2010. For our next segment, very pleased to have with us here Ewald Comhaire, who works for HP as a global architect and is one of the HP Cloud advisors.
Yes, we are.
So, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, John.
So, Ewald, what are HP Cloud advisors?
Well, first of all, we are very easy to find because we wear these white lab coats.
Oh, you should have worn one here today.
Yes. Unfortunately, I left it back in the room.
Okay, so you're the guys walking around with the white coats.
Yes, and sometimes people come up to us and say, "Oh, doctor, we're not feeling too good. Can you fix our problem?" And we say, "If it's cloud, yes, we can fix it."
So the cloud advisors?
So cloud advisors are really some of the most senior people in HP in all kind of different disciplines. They really come together as a group to help customers solve problems around cloud. So some of us, like myself, come out of the services world. Some of my colleagues come out of the software world. Others come more from an industry knowledge, like telecommunications business. And others come from the server, software, or networks sides. But the great thing is we really team up to help customers solve questions and problems around cloud.
And how are these Are these formal engagements or more informal? How do the advisors work?
Both formal and informal.
Okay.
Like this week, we did for customers a lot of what we call cloud workshops. Cloud workshop is a pretty unique interactive dialogue with the customer around 10 different aspects of cloud. We take them through, what could cloud mean for them, from a benefit and maybe inhibitor thing. What does it change to the business? To what is cloud? Because cloud is such a broad definition. It can mean anything to everyone. To how do you get to it? What's your vision for 2 years in the future, where you are today? To how to get there? What does it mean for your facilities, your infrastructure, but also your people, your processes, how you organize. The role of, for example, an IT organization with the cloud or without the cloud. Some people think IT organization with the cloud will be completely gone. It's actually not true, because in reality you don't want your businesses to go around you. You want the IT organization to be some kind of a services broker.
Sure.
Understands the requirements from the business.
IT knows compliance, knows management,
Exactly.
Knows process. You can't just have people whipping out their credit cards and buying what look like books from Amazon.
Exactly. So sometimes, we say the public cloud is shadow IT made easy. The only thing you need is a credit card.
So you were here this week. You were doing cloud workshops. Are these things that people go to in a group, or are these individual kind of workshop sessions?
Generally, they're individual. So
Okay.
if we do them with customers, it's generally half day to a day with the executive team, both on the IT side, some business executives as well.
Is the idea then to get a kickstart in what a cloud project might look like? Is that sort of the goal of the workshop?
Absolutely, and also to understand the customer requirements, because again, there's so many different views of cloud, and then to help them get started on a roadmap. In fact, customers make their own roadmap at the end of the workshop.
Okay, so now, as cloud is a lot of things, as we've talked about, right? It's a set of technologies, it's an operational stance, in some ways it's a consumption model, in some ways it's a process model.
It's a business model.
Business model, yeah. The customers who are most successful and at then going and implementing cloud projects, do they have some common characteristics of either business process maturity or culture or forward thinkingness even? I don't know. What would you say are some common characteristics or even some common mistakes that you see or common misconceptions?
So it's a great question. So first of all, it's definitely not just about the technology. So cloud is really about a different way to deliver IT functionality, not under the form of technology, but as a service. So that means it involves the people, the process, and the technology. So generally, the projects that are more successful is when these three things come well together in a planned way with a clear strategy, a good understanding from when you start from and where you want to be. And that's independent of whether you want to more consume cloud or become more of an internal or a private hosted cloud provider. It doesn't matter, but the three things really have to come nicely together. And sometimes that's not always the case. We have a lot of times that we start the discussion with, what technology should I buy? How can I get this unlimited scalability? And then we ask, okay, but what do you really want to offer? Can take a very simple example, storage as a service. You can do that as part of compute. You can do that directly as an end service. It's not the same. If you do it through compute, it's basically storage is supporting your compute service. It is not exactly the same as if you are offering a storage directly to a consumer, maybe on a mobile device, with no compute involved at all.
So the business case and the end use has to come first.
Absolutely, because cloud is all about shifting the risk and the capital from the consumer to the provider. And so it's very important to know very well, if you do it for profit, what's your revenue stream? How do I differentiate from the competition? What's my portfolio looking like?
What do you see as some of the barriers to enterprises adopting the cloud?
Well, clearly and I think a lot of the surveys showed it as well, security, reliability, loss of control, they are definitely on the top of the list. Sometimes rightful concerns, but not always. Security can also be used as an excuse when, for example, your own policies aren't well documented and you can't really compare very well. But in some cases also a very true, rightful concern.
Right, and also certainly in a European context, data compliance, privacy concerns.
Yes.
In that same bucket there.
Yes, and standards like PCI compliance, I mean, they may have a very big influence on what's possible, what's not possible. But it all starts with understanding the customer or the consumer and understanding really what your current policies are. Then we can really make a match between what the requirements are and what's really possible.
What kind of workloads are enterprises moving into the cloud?
There's a lot of possibilities, but of course the ones that are the most popular and the ones that makes most sense are those highly dynamic workloads. In fact, any workload that you need less than 8 weeks a year, you can ask yourself, you should at least ask yourself the question, is that not a good candidate for the cloud?
Things that need highly burstable, things that may have a quarter end or seasonal variation.
Yes, things that are more stable in kind. Today, at least financially speaking, it's generally not worth going out to the cloud because you get a lot of extra work. You also have to negotiate service level. You have to still monitor it.
That's what an external cloud, internal private cloud could possibly some.
Private cloud obviously has a much larger applicability, specifically if it's internal, because you could argue if I build out a scalable, well architected infrastructure, I can use it for cloud applications, but I can also use it for traditional applications. Because an internal cloud, which is a form of private cloud, doesn't have the security issues, it doesn't have the for-profit, you don't have to go as sophisticated, you don't need to bill. You can maybe allocate some costs, but you don't have to have the same complexity. You don't have to worry about multiple different customers. Yes, you need to worry about different departments and levels of security, but it's a less big problem. And private clouds are actually a lot of applicability in many enterprises.
How much is agility a driver of why people are going to cloud-based models?
Huge. Because if you really think about the business that needs to innovate, innovation is really more an art than a science today. If you know 2 out of 3 innovation projects fail, and then what the business really likes is when a project fails, and they know innovation is going to fail, that they don't carry the costs on a continued basis once they shut down the
Just
project.
from a real concrete level, I haven't bought a whole bunch of servers and racks of servers and stacks of stuff.
Absolutely.
I've maybe used part of my internal resource pool or an external resource pool, but I can then reallocate that for another use transparently.
So that's very attractive to the business. Starting fast, but also winding down fast and not leaving a big cost trail behind when you realize it's never going to work and I need to start something new.
Yeah. Interesting. So any surprises or anything like that from this week in Copenhagen as you've been talking, or as you've been talking to customers in general? It seems like there's a lot of interest
there's
in cloud
an
computing
enormous
models.
amount of interest, and of course the big question is always, how do we have done a lot of virtualization today, but we seem some kind stuck. How do we move to something which is cloud, which is not such an easy question to answer because virtualization still essentially was a technology, and in cloud you now need to think about the consumer. You need to really think about what offering you're going to build, and it's a bigger step than most people realize.
Yeah, I'm hearing that from other people too. It sounds like we're at a very interesting point in time and a very interesting shift. I'm glad that we're here to be a part of it, actually.
Yes, and that's why the advisors have been created.
Well, Ewald Comhaire, one of the HP Cloud Advisors, thanks for coming and talking to me today.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you.